this week's cinematography breakdown of the latest music video, The Fall of Man by Sophie Lloyd and Matthew Heffy. Let's dive on in. Alright y'all, so in this week's cinematography breakdown, I'm briefly going to touch over some of the lighting and camera and general grip equipment that we used, but more specifically going to really focus on the lighting techniques in our two various setups. So without further ado, just breaking down really fast the different gear that we used. So we used the Ursa Mini Pro G2, Pocket 4K cinema camera by Blackmagic Design, Steadicam system by Tilta with a Ronin S adapter on there so we can do some really cool 360 rolls. We used DZO Synglass. We have a 25 Vespid Prime, a 50 Vespid Prime, a 90 Macro Vespid Prime, and a 100 Vespid Prime, all f2.8. Additionally, other variations of stabilization. We had a tripod that we used for a couple shots. I used my Easy Rig system for some forms of stabilization as well. For wireless transmission and receiving, we used the Hollyland Cosmos C1. We also used the Hollyland comm system, which is super vital for productions kind of like this. We're playing live music, you're using a really big comms or PA system. If it wasn't for the comm system, I would never be able to communicate with my Steadicam operator or be able to communicate with my AC or anything like that because the music is just far too loud during a take. But because we have the comms, I'm able to give them real-time feedback while we're actually recording, which was huge, guys. It really allowed us the freedom to make on-the-fly decision-making, adjust our shots and framing as needed, to really refine and get the best compositions we possibly could. Those are the predominant basics, guys. We had a hazer outside of that. Let me just break real quick into lighting and grip gear. So obviously we use C-stands, sandbags, then we also use an 8x8 frame. That was about predominantly it when it comes to grip gear. So again, 8x8 frame. I think in total we used like maybe 6 C-stands. We had a bunch of sandbags. Some of the C-stands we used boom arms and knuckles with as well. That's pretty much it there. Now lighting wise, we used 4 Nanelite Pavo tubes, 4 foot long tubes. We used 2 Godox TL60 tube lights. We used 4 Nanelite Pavo 6Cs, and then we used 3 ARRI lights for some really strong heavy back tungsten light in the background. And then lastly, we used the Falconized light mat, the 4x4, and put that behind our 8x8 frame with, I believe it was half a stop of diffusion with our cloth there. So shining through there for some really nice soft key light. And the big intention there is obviously, we need some key light. We need to be able to light them a little bit in the front. But we did the 4x4 and then shot it through an 8x8 frame because we wanted really soft light. The emphasis in this video, and again, you guys hear me talk about it a lot if you follow my channel, is backlight. I really wanted to go heavy with the backlight and keep that strong and allow that warm color to come out and shine strong. And in order to do that, I knew that I had to keep our key light very soft so that way it doesn't diffuse that out or take away from that. Something you'll find oftentimes, for instance, when you're using a lot of color, if you're trying to create a scene that has a lot of blue, purple, or a mixture of blue and purple, or green and orange, right? The second you start adding a key like this and you shine it onto someone, that retracts, it takes out the color. It's diluting the color when you start adding natural light. So again, knowing that I wanted to add minimal natural light so we could really focus on that tungsten light there. And then again, the tube lights were more so to add some nice color, some saturation, just sprucing the image up a bit and give it some more life. So these are really more so accent lights. They're not really lighting them that much. They're giving them a bit of hair light for close-ups when we're using the 50 or the 100, but predominantly, again, they're just accent lights. They're there to add to the scene, to make it more captivating and interesting. Now just breaking down the various lighting setups, right? So we had our main look, which was full band in front of band stage and setup. And so again, we used the 3 ARRI lights in the back, set those up, 1 in the middle, 2 on the sides, a nice even symmetrical setup there. Now additionally, in this scene here, we pumped in haze, so that really helps create a little more atmosphere in the scene, bring out a bit of light rays. And then lastly, to make this a more captivating environment, we use what's called a wet down. So if you pay close attention to a lot of the shots, specifically the wides, you'll notice that we're getting some really cool, awesome reflective light from the tube lights shining off the ground. And that is because we used a wet down. So what you typically can do is you can use a hose or a bucket and you'll pour the water onto concrete floor, and those puddles, or if it doesn't have puddles, even just getting the floor wet is gonna cause reflection if it's a reflective surface. And that can create some really, really cool effects, allow you to just make the video go from here to whoop, here. Now, lastly, I just want to mention again, you know, the different shooting styles we used at this specific look. So we had master wides. So we got a couple really cool, very, very captivating takes with 360 rolls. So again, we had the Steadicam Tilta system with a Ronin S attached on top, so we could create some really, really cool, captivating images and just overall shots with a lot of dynamic movement, a lot of parallaxing, 360 rolls, pushing in, pulling back. So what we did is we got a couple takes with the Steadicam there. Then from that, I wanted to get a couple safety wides. So I shot using a tripod and using the Vespid 25 millimeter and the Vespid 50, and just shooting those on the Ursa Mini Pro G2 tripod and going on easy rig. And then we worked in for close-ups. So after we got safety wides on tripod and easy rig, and we covered some really cool dynamic movement shots with the Steadicam, I knew all we really needed was close-up and details with each individual band member. So capturing close-ups with vocals, bass, guitar, and drums. So we went in and we got some close-ups using the 50 and using the 100. Grabbed those close-ups and that was it. Called a scratch. And we're done on that look. 86 look number 1. Went over to look number 2. Well, really did an 86 look number 1. So this is the benefit of coming to things prepared with pre-production, knowing what you're doing ahead of time. So while we're setting up and building out set look number 1, we were also building out set look number 2. So when we were done with set look number 1, we simply just jumped over to set look number 2. Additionally, this has nothing to do with cinematography, but I do want to mention it because I think it's important to think about. Again, guys, pre-production is everything. Matthew Heffy is not part of this particular band with Sophie Lloyd and the rest of the crew, be that Chris with the drums and Adam with bass. However, Matthew was there to help on this project. You know, he was obviously lead vocals for this particular song, but he wasn't in the actual band. And due to time constraint, we only had about 3 to 4 hours with Matthew. And so as a result of that, you know, we knew we needed to build set look 1 and 2 prior to beginning production, because we knew we had to kind of jump back and forth. Essentially what we had to do is we had to film all the wide band material shots first with Matthew, get his individual looks with, at the band location, then film everything we needed with Matthew at the second location. Then we filmed everything we needed with the other band members at the second location. Then we went back to our main look number 1 and we filmed all the close-ups with all the other band members except Matthew. And we were able to do that and make things work in an efficient manner because of pre-production planning, because we thought about these things ahead of time. If we didn't do so, we would have been stuck with just having Matthew for look number 1. We wouldn't have had any look number 2, any looks from the second setup with Matthew in them. Now, getting to set look number 2, all we did is set up a bunch of clear plastic wrap. Guys, you can go get this from Home Depot. I got it for like 50 bucks and I got 18 feet by 10 feet, which was more than enough for this setup. So again, we created like four walls essentially, you know, a floor, 2 sides and a top, and then I would shoot straight on. And so kind of just creating this really cool, obscure, like dangerous, gritty, like Dexter vibe, right? Like it's just like, you don't know what's gonna happen, but it just feels kind of murderous and obscure and thriller-esque, right? So creating this really cool dynamic environment. And then to light it, we use the Falconized light mat 4x4. We set that on top and we just set that to some various strobing and storming modes. And I had my Steadicam operator in AC, Emmanuel, simply operate that. You know, I had him kind of just vibe off the music and make manual changes. So he's kind of manually changing between Storm 1, Storm 2, and strobing. So some various different look effects. And I think he did a bit of bad TV filter there too. So a little bit of just soft flickering. So that was like our main kind of key light with this shot. And then to amplify the scene and make it more interesting, we added backlight. Additionally, when you're dealing with storming and strobing, you want to bear in mind that there's going to be points where there's no light from that storm or strobe. So you need some other form of light in there so we can see the scene. Now, with that being said, I wish we did add a very, very soft uplight in the front for a very, very minimal key, just so we had a little more fill there. However, it still looks badass. I'm not going to complain. So we went with our second light as backlight, again, shining on the wall, coming from an angle so we can create some texture on the wall. We are using the Aperture 300D. Forgot to mention that in the beginning, apologies. So we use an Aperture 300D here with a Leica adapter, and then we put a essentially like blinds or like shutters, put a leaflet and that looks essentially emulates blinds or like shutters, and so that's creating some really, really nice, cool texture on the back there. So what that does, one, makes for more captivating image. It adds texture into the scene. It helps separate a key figure, whoever that may be, puts them more in the foreground and separates them from the background even more, adds some cool contrast through light. And that's really the setups, guys. Those were the two looks and lighting setup we did for this. They wanted just a straightforward, badass music video, rock video, classic style. You know, they didn't really want B-roll or any kind of story. So we did these two set looks and really just mixed them in and had fun with it, guys. All right, and that's it for this week's cinematography breakdown. If there's anything I missed, drop a question or comment below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you're enjoying the content, want to see more cinematography breakdowns, exclusive behind the scenes content, and helpful lighting tips, tutorials, and more, be sure to subscribe, hit that post notification button so you know when new content's coming out, because we got new content dropping every single week, and I'll see y'all at the next video.